City, Ligo Town, Paradisa, Fort Ligorino, Bart Lake City, Scala Junction, and then Jargo City. For any persons with oversized baggage, please proceed to the head-end car behind the locomotive.
Hello everyone, it's Matt here and welcome to the Brickliner update for June 2018. Now, unlike a lot of other updates on the Brickliner train, this one is going to be more about the technical and thought processes, because obviously I've had no new parts. What new parts I have had from Bricklink I've already put in, and it's mostly just a few part swaps from ones with the wrong colour to the right colour, and a few other bits and pieces, but nothing actual sustainable to actually show you. So we're going to go through some of the bits. The first one is the underframe. In a previous episode I sort of said I was possibly thinking about changing the underframe due to various things, and I have actually decided to go with the different option of having these knotted curve slopes on plates and with modified bricks. There's several reasons for this. It allows better underframe detail, so instead of just being essentially like a giant enclosed bathtub, there's actual detail I can put behind it. So I can put in like waste tanks for the toilet, I can put in gas cylinders for the brake system, gas cylinders for the kitchen car, for example, and that sort of thing. So there's a lot more detail behind it, and I can add like brake rigging and all this sort of stuff, which I wouldn't have been able to do on the previous car. And you know, it just makes it a little bit better. So it means when I turn the car over, if you like, to show the underframe, it actually has some detail there. It also adds a bit of visual interest as well. So obviously there's that little step, so there's not much in it. It's probably about a third of a stud in terms of a third of the plate, sort of like if you went horizontal, a 1x1 plate, but there's just a little step in there from the main body, sort of like there, down to the underframe, which is sort of like that. So it's not a great little gap, but it is there, and if it wasn't there, it's something you may notice, but it is just a little step, and it sort of just adds a little bit more visual interest to the rather plain side, if I'm going to be honest. And the other thing is, of course, is that it gets better clearance, because the height of the brick, of two bricks, versus the curve slope is more, so there's actually a little bit more clearance. It doesn't look like much, and unless I pointed it out, you probably wouldn't have noticed much of a difference, but there is just a little bit better clearance. It looks just that slightly bit better, and you know, with all these changes, it's not going to weigh anymore. You know, I've had a brief feel of the weights, and you know, from all the, I'm not losing any weight, but I'm not gaining any either, if I'm going to be totally honest, because the weight I'd lose from all the detailing on sort of like the main plates and the bricks and everything else, I'm probably going to lose that in adding all that extra detailing. So there's no roughly it's going to be the same. They'll possibly be a bit lighter, I'm not sure yet, depends on how I build the underframes and details, but there's that option, you know, that I can always add more if I wanted to. The bogies as well. The bogies are of a plain design, if I'm going to be brutally honest. And nice as they are, they're not the most detailed. They're using the standard Lego sort of like wheel elements, and it could be better. And that's something I might look into in the future. It's not something I'm looking into at the moment. But the best thing about the design is that because I've got that 2x8 technical plate in there, I can just pull out the existing body and just put a new one in if I want to. I'll also even go the other way and use a turntable instead, as is done on, for example, the Brick Model Railroader kit, with that little 2x2 sort of like plate height turntable. That just allows a bit more flexibility that way. The other reason for changing the bogie is to add some end detail. Now obviously, if you've had a look at the design, you've got the end door, and then there's the sort of like what we're doing bogie steps underneath. So if I change the bogie slightly and maybe take it slightly further towards the middle of the car, I can possibly add some steps underneath, or a little bit of detail like that, possibly some brake pipe representation, for example, and it just adds a little bit more to the car, makes it a little bit more interesting. And it's just a little few changes, but it will make, you know, things a lot better in the long run. Moving away from the underframe now to the observation car, I've actually had a bit of a genius stroke. I was at work the once and was having a look at the birthday series CMFA Series 18, some of the parts with that, and then I suddenly had the realisation that I could use the sort of like the one brick high present piece as the light box for the actual sort of like tailboard of the observation car, and I've got a copy of it here. So essentially, if I peel this off, you can see that this is a bracket and it has a hole in there, and this is the actual brick itself. So if I take this off, the 2x2 tile goes on the front there, which I've already got printed here, but there's this gap here and there's a little anti-stud. I can drill out that anti-stud to allow a light fitting to come in, or an LED for example, and then obviously that's also covered on the bracket, so I can actually have a light fitting coming in this end here and then coming out the other end. So it's just a little bit of a easy sort of like cheat method to doing it. It's not illegal to do because the previous method would have required either glue or self-adhesive tape. So this is a more legal method. There's no parts being modified except for the print, and it's still all that sort of stuff, and it actually fits into the car better. I've already done the redesign work, so it does blend in a lot better. So that's probably a very quick change I'm going to do just to get it done for this bit. Now I have two minds with the end of the observation car. Keep it as is, in sort of like the very sort of blocky but kind of curved panels as they go round, or update it for a much smoother and rounded end, possibly with a few more bits or changing it around that way. There's a few difficulties with changing the end, partly because of having it as a minifigure with minifigures inside. If I want to keep the minifigures, that kind of limits how much I can modify the car to enable minifigures to sit in. So I might have to sort of say that the tail, sort of like 12 studs or something, can't have any passenger detailing in because of the roof struts or this, that and the other. Or I might sort of go, I could put in detail but it's limited, and I might have to put a figure in but they might be missing their legs and it might just be plates to represent the legs for example, and things like that. So it's a bit of adjustment that way. And the other thing I might have to do as well is because I'm changing the underframe, like the centre bit, the end bit will now be sticking out because it is still that 8 wide underframe. So again, that might be something I'll have to go into later and sort of strip out and change around and do whatever. That's going to be something I'm going to have to look into in the future. The locomotive, because I haven't touched on it much at all for the past couple of months, I'm redesigning it yet again. I did sort of trial out a sort of like bogie design, sort of similar to the Pennsylvania Railroad T1, and from a technical perspective, it worked fine. The power transfer went through fine. Had enough. It certainly would have had enough power. Everything ran smoothly and everything else. There were a few problems with it though. I wasn't happy with the height change. Honestly, I could have done something about that. The turntable could have, which is a brick high, could have been swapped for one of those newer turntables, so it's only a little high, having a better plate. And obviously I lose height there. I know there are a few of the bits as well, like how to attach the cylinders. That was a bit of a curious because I wanted to keep both cylinders in the forward position, whereas it was starting to look like I'd have to put them at opposite ends, and I don't really want that because it doesn't look quite right in my eyes. So that sort of like, as much as I liked it, that design had to be canned of trying to do again with the standard sort of probably going for a 464 wheel configuration. But again, it's something very early stages and I'll have to deal with it later. The tender as well. The tender has been updated again. It's now 8 wide. I've got rid of the extra sort of like plates or tiles along the outer edge. As in real life, they'd probably be well do plates on to keep it sort of smooth. So now it's just purely 8 wide with the exception of the handrails. It looks a lot better for it. There's a lot more flexibility in the bogies. and the bogies themselves have been updated with some step detail and a few other bits and pieces, just enough to free it up a little bit. The roof itself is pretty much sorted and that sort of thing, so it does look a lot better, and there's sort of room for lighting in there now as well, so I can obviously add that in. Speaking of sort of like lighting and effects and power and that sort of stuff, there's enough room in the tender for 2 battery boxes, and I have scaled it out just right for 2 battery boxes. They do fit in, and there is room for the lighting obviously, and the lighting for the tender especially includes both the tail lights or marker lights and the actual backup light, if you like, so when the loco would be in reverse. And one of the reasons I got all this sort of thing about lighting is that I eventually want to fit the loco with the PFX brick, so it's obviously got all the sound and that sort of stuff. So I might, for the first instance, just use an S brick for it if or when I do complete it. But a PFX brick is in the long term, so I can fit a speaker, for example, in the cab, fit the actual controller within the boiler somewhere, and have this nice big loco, really powerful, and can really, pull a great train, especially with all those 5, possibly 6 or more cars behind it. And turning to the other cars, I've had a few thoughts, and I'm probably going to be changing a few bits around. The toilet and dividers, I'm actually going to move away from the white sort of cleanliness sort of thing and actually go for reddish brown for wood. A lot of these sort of like more historical sort of streamliner cars were built with quite a lot of wood panelling, or fake wood panelling at least, and that's kind of what I didn't go for. So I went for the modern sort of vinyl PVC sort of aesthetic. So that's going to be backtracked, and it's going to go in reddish brown, so I can sort of deal with that. And obviously I've still got to design the toilets and that sort of stuff for the passenger cars, but at least now I've done a bit of research on it, so I now know kind of where I'm going to go for that, and I've got a rough sort of layout in mind for those as well. The dividers as well, if there's any dividers in the cars, they're going to be in reddish brown as well. So for example, the different section between the baggage compartment and the passenger compartment in the combine car, that's going to get changed around as well for a wooden one. The kitchen is going to be exempt because that would have been in the kitchen, so that's either would have been painted wood in a white colour, or it might even been a very thin metal door or something like that. And as such, I'm going to change that to keep it as it is, as a pure white door, and detailing that sort of thing, because it obviously for a kitchen, cleanliness is the main factor rather than sort of designing it for passengers. So doing it in white would be better, and it also helps the cleanliness, for example, so you can see better, that sort of thing as well. So that's their kitchen staying white, but the rest of the cars friendly dividers or toilet partition, that sort of thing, are staying reddish brown. Now I normally sort of talk about the future and what's going to happen to the train. The priority now, as far as I'm concerned, is with redoing the observation car, because I haven't done that yet. Finishing off the combine, and then finishing off the standard class passenger car, or the standard passengers, if you like. There's a few reasons for that, in that those 3 coaches are the end of the train, the start of the train, with the exception of the locomotive, and then it's obviously some passenger compartments as well. So the train will probably be done in those 3, and then the kitchen car will probably come next, and then the other first class, and then the second standard class passenger car, if I was so to do that. And that's the sort of way I'd work it out. Obviously, any progress on the car is dependent on getting new parts in to actually finish them, and with the current situation, I'm not entirely sure when that's going to happen yet. So yeah, that's it for this update. Hopefully this has been a bit more informative, and shows a bit of the backdrop behind it, because obviously not everything is sort of put some bricks together and there's a model. There's a lot of research in it. So that's it for this video, and I'm not sure when the next one is going to be. But obviously stay tuned to the channel, because quite a lot of stuff I've got planned and thinking about as well. So that's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.